Hi, hello, bonjour, and namaste. This is Out of the Clouds, a podcast at the crossroads between business and mindfulness. And I'm your host, Anne Militala. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Tal Zur as my guest. Tal is an industrial designer and a teacher based in Tel Aviv. She is also the co-founder of the Iota Project, a startup with the goal or mission to create social impact through design. And their technology, or rather their technique, the one powering the project, is crochet. I had the pleasure of meeting Tal briefly in person when she and I attended an innovation conference in Geneva a few months back. And I was very taken with the project, the product, and with Tal, and hopefully you're going to feel the same way I feel as you discover her and the wonderful work that is behind the Iota Project. So in our conversation, Tal tells me how she became an industrial designer. She also studied curatorship and patisserie, yes. How she chose to stop working in fashion, and the serendipitous connection that she made with her co-founder, Shula Mozes, who brought her the idea of crochet. Tal tells me about how she got inspired from an exhibition at the ICA in Boston, and that's how she had the vision of working with crochet, but on a different scale. Tal also shares with me how crochet is like a design language, and that's one of the reasons that she's able to work with communities of women that work remotely and in their own time. We talk about what it's like to make this luxury high-end product with a tolerance for mistake. We also discuss how she approaches her life as an entrepreneur and a mother of 3, and the things that keep her grounded, including the meditative qualities of crocheting. So without further ado, I give you my wonderful conversation with Tal Zur. Enjoy. Tal, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Out of the Clouds.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So tell me, where am I finding you today?
Actually, today I was supposed to be at the studio, but I'm actually at my house with my daughter and husband, and didn't plan to, but such a cold day, like Israeli weather, cold day. It means like 17 degrees or something, though. It's windy and a bit rainy, so it's actually good to be home today and speak from home.
I'm loving the fact that 17 degrees is cold in Tel Aviv.
It's like super cold.
But actually, being by the sea, I'm guessing that also it's very humid. So this is a different kind of cold than the one I'm experiencing in Geneva.
Yeah, completely. And we're used to be cold. So all the clothes that we have, and I mean, when it rains, the traffic stops and there are so many troubles. The way that we used to live under the sun, I think.
Oh, I miss the sun. Well, tomorrow apparently. So I'm really excited to talk to you. I so enjoyed discovering your project and seeing you garner a prize at the Luxury Innovation Awards in Geneva back in October 2022. And we'll come to talk to that. But so as a way to enter in our conversation, for my privilege and as well as my guests, I really enjoy asking the people that I bring onto the podcast to tell their story very freely and pick up wherever they are comfortable doing so. So we better understand who you are before we talk about what you do. So I know it's a tall order, but Tal, would you indulge me and telling me your story?
Yes, I'm happy to do so. I'm 40 years old and I was actually born and raised in Tel Aviv. I have 3 kids, young ones, 7, 5, and less than a year. And if I think about it, I guess the big change or the big journey starts actually 8 years ago, but I'm an industrial designer and I'm a lecturer at the same school that I studied. It's called HIT in Holon. It's very close to Tel Aviv. And I think it's one of the best schools here for industrial design in Israel. And I teach there for the last 12 years. And it's also a big part of what I'm doing. And I really love to do it. So I finished to study, I guess, 13 years ago, something like that. I worked in the fashion industry. I'm an industrial designer, really, and that's why I love the 3D product. Though I'm super interested in craft and in textile, it's something that I knew that I loved before. And when I finished the studies, the industrial design studies, I went to study curatorship and museology in Tel Aviv University for 2 years. It was really, really interesting. And my final project was related to craft and textile. Though I worked a bit as a curator and with a really famous curator here that calls Galit. But I felt, if I'm going to be honest, that I'm not willing to give the stage for other designers. I really felt that I want to design. And maybe that's what I'm going to do when I'll be old. So there are many things that I might do when I'll be old, though this is maybe one of them. The other thing that I did is actually when I finished to study, I started to study patisserie. And I thought that I'm going to be a designer who works especially with patisserie. But I fell in love with the textile and with my work, and then everything changed. So this is the beginning of my way. And time in fashion, I really enjoyed it and I loved it, though I felt that there's something is missing there. I mean, I like to design clothes, and what I really enjoyed is to create a brand that I was working, big brand that used to import very good and high-end brands to Israel. And when I started, I worked there and I built our own brand. And it was the first time that the company that I worked in started to be a producer and not just importer. And creating that brand was, for me, amazing experience. I enjoyed every minute, even the hard parts. And I really liked it. I felt that I creating something that it's not more than just creating a product. Still, I think that I had a lot of criticism to the fashion industry, and I felt like I'm not in the right place and that I need to do something. And I decided that after 5 years that I'm going to search for my next thing. So that's my life before I started Iota. And I kind of stayed almost the same, though. I built another brand, and it's really my fourth child.
Oh, I love that. Yes. When did you become interested in design? Do you have a particular memory when you were a child or a teenager when you realized that this was something you wanted to pursue?
It's funny because I used to, when I was a kid, create things related, maybe artistic things, but never thought about design as something that I'm going to learn. I actually study biology and chemistry, and I'm kind of a good student. I have patience and time, and I can read a lot, and it's something that I know to focus for a long time. And I remember that when I finished the army, I used to do jewelries and sell them, but it was a kind of a hobby. I never thought that it's going to be never my job. But then when I thought what I'm going to study, I thought that maybe that I'm going to start to make jewelries. And then I traveled in India for 6 months, and I went to learn how they make jewelries, like silver jewelries and some kind of old techniques, like craft techniques for jewelries. And then I heard someone was talking about industrial design, and I felt that if I'm going to learn to be product design, industrial design, I can do whatever I want. It can be a furniture, it can be jewelry, it can be, ceramic, but it also can be computers or cars or a bicycle. And I thought that because I don't know exactly what I want to do, so maybe I will learn something that will give me all the abilities. And I think that I'm trying to teach, but also what you study when you learn how to be industrial designer, you learn how to research, and you learn how to learn about some industry. You understand that, I don't know, for example, I didn't know to design in plastic because it's not something that I do, and I don't do it. And I wasn't the ceramic, so I didn't know how to plan objects from ceramic. Though what I learned, and that's what we are trying to do, is to understand how to think as a ceramic designer, how to think as a designer who works with plastic. So, and if you know what the right questions, and if you know what you should know or what you should learn, you can actually learn everything. And then a good designer can design things and use a lot of different kind of industries.
It's fascinating because here you're talking about industrial design as a little bit like a superpower.
Maybe as a method. Yeah, I think it's kind of a method, a way of thinking.
I was about to say a methodology.
Yeah, exactly. A methodology.
A methodology that you can apply. And it's interesting that you also talk about questions. You're saying it's about asking the right questions to think as a designer of XYZ. It's fascinating. And so what was the appeal for textiles in particular? Is there a story there as well?
The only thing that I don't have is a lot of patience. And with textile, you can design something and after a few hours, you can actually, few hours or few days, never mind, but you can actually see, and when you design something from plastic, and when I started, it was before the 3D printing that actually changed the way that we think, because you could actually think about something, creating it, and you have a model, and it's not just a model that looks like it can actually be the final product. I think it was something that I felt very attracted to. That's one thing. The other thing, I love craft. I always loved craft. I mean, I felt, if you were talking about a superpower, I felt that craft related to skills. And I think that everyone needs to be good at something. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be bake the best apple cake. It can be, I don't know, making colors like really good. It can be cleaning your house. It can be know the way. There are people who always know where they are. I mean, you should be really good at something. And and I felt that having a skill that you are good at will give you, it's empowering. It will make you believe that you can do many things. And with textile, I think it's something that you can learn the skill, I would say, quite fast. Of course, if you are an artisan, it will take you years, but the parabola, maybe the way, it's quite fast if I need to think about it.
Sure. La parabole. I know what you mean. So tell us about the Iota Project and how it came to be.
When I started Iota, as I told you, so I was working in the fashion industry and I decided that I'm going to think about my next thing. And I didn't know what I'm going to do. In that time, I was looking for my next venture and I met Shula. Shula is my partner. Her name is Shula Mozes. She's 70 years old and she's an amazing woman. And she's really one of my biggest inspiration every day. I think when we meet and in every conversation, there is something there that I'm taking with me and it's not obvious. We met through some colleagues and they told me that maybe it can be interesting for me to meet her. And I said, okay, let's do it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to meet many people. And when we met, she told me that she actually wanted to build a brand that will provide jobs to unemployed women through knitting. I didn't know nothing about knitting and I didn't know nothing about social businesses. And I said, okay, I need to think about it. And I think that two things happened. Once I opened Google and I wrote it crochet knitting and it was like the most unsexy page that I ever seen. I mean, you saw there like socks for babies and really not cool and attractive objects and technique. And it didn't look very good. In that time, I went to a trek that's called Camino de Santiago. It's like 800 kilometers from France just to Spain. Yeah. I went with then he was my boyfriend, now it's my husband. Mm-hmm. We went together. And before we went to the trek, Shula taught me how to knit really, really in a simple way. And I took like a bit of yarn, a little bit yarn ball and a needle. And I was knitting all the time. And it really became like a therapy. I don't know where is what I needed. I think I needed something from my head, but I don't know where it is. And it really doesn't matter because I really felt that I want to do it more. So I felt that I'm attracted to that craft and everything seems like it can be knitted. I was imagining myself knitting many, many things. And more than that, I started to research about knitting and I discovered that crocheting, it's more than knitting. It's knitting with one needle, actually. I'll correct myself. I discovered that crochet, it's the only craft in the world that has international signs like tones in music. It means that if I'll teach you to knit, professionally, I will teach you to read a sketch. And I thought, exactly like tones, like bands can play and they don't need to speak with each other. Sure. They just need to see. So it's the same. So I can take a group of people, give them sketches, and they will crochet as the sketch. And I felt that it's so smart. If I am getting back to the industrial designer hat that I used to have, right, asking the right question means that every choice that you make during your design has to have like an answer, has to have a smart answer. And I thought we're not going to knit or crochet because Shula is a very good knitter, right? It's not a good excuse to create a brand out of it. But if that craft is interesting and it's smart, and if our dream is to create communities of women all around the world, so if we're going to have our own language, we can communicate more easily and overcome cultural difficulties, language difficulties, distance, many things that I thought that our own language can support us. So I actually started to like that idea. After the track, I flew to Boston. I didn't have work then, so I could do whatever I want. And my sister used to live in Boston then. And there's an amazing museum there that's called ICA. It's for Modern Art Museum. I really recommend to go there if you're going to Boston. And there was an exhibition that called Fiber Sculpture from 1960 till today, till present. And it was an amazing exhibition. The scale of the object was huge. I never saw textile in such a huge scale. And when I saw it, I really felt that this exhibition is like made specially for me. I mean, I bought the catalog. I came back to Tel Aviv, to Shula, and I told her, I don't know what you had in mind, but if you're interested of doing something like that, I'm in. And then she actually flew to Boston. She saw the exhibition. She came back and she told me, that's so not what I have in mind, but let's start. When I'm thinking about that story, I'm kind of dreaming sometimes that I will be invited to talk about Iota in business schools, because we didn't have a business plan. We didn't have a budget. I mean, I didn't have even one Excel. I have sketches. I wrote many things. Both of us had such a passion to do something. But if I need to think about it, I'm so happy that we did it like it's written in the book, because I think that sometimes it's some part of what you're doing. It's just do it, start to work. Then everything will become completed. I mean, you could always add an Excel, but I think that if you're passionate to something and you are happy with it, so it's better just to start working on it. So that's actually how everything started. The next step, I mean, if I jump in, was when I understood that if that's what we are going to do, we have to design our own textile. Because I imagine it like Dior. I mean, I would never buy a Dior dress and then go to the shop in the street and will find the fabric and then I will buy it. If I'll buy a Dior dress, they design the fabric, they produce it. You cannot find it anywhere else. That's part of what they present. And here, for me with Iota, it was the same. If we're going to create handmade, very high-end products, it means that they're going to cost a lot, that's for sure, because we pay fair trade, and I understood that they're going to cost a lot. And if that's what we are going to do, so it has to be new, and the textile has to be something that would be part of our language, of Iota language. And I also thought that the right materials can be part of creating new look, like create the object that it will be relevant, modern, that people would, creating something in crocheting and make it cool it's a hard work. So the second thing that I did was to understand that and to design our yarn, we control their thickness, their strength, their color, the character. Some of them are UV protected, for example. So it's something that we thought in advance and created the yarn with anti-UV character. Of course, we have the social issue. It goes together, but it's kind of a different path, because creating a community is building it a bit different than like dreaming about creating objects that are going to be cool and relevant and high end.
That's fascinating. So going back just a tiny bit, I want to share with our listeners that I did some research before we spoke today. And actually, the ICA in Boston has a fantastic website, and there is the archive of the exhibition that you talk about. And I was lucky enough to see several of the shorter clips behind the scenes of some of the great pieces of work that you saw. And there is also, I think, a 90-minute interview with one of the artists. So if you're interested, I'll put the links in the show notes, because it's really worth catching a glimpse of what sort of lit this passion for you. I was very curious, I must say, because I'd read about that.
And I think it's also nice to know that sometimes, like, going to an exhibition, for example, really can change the way that you think about something. I mean, I really have to give that specific exhibition the beginning of Iota. I mean, it's really part of it. It's opened my mind and my heart, and I was starting to fantasize about what can we do after being there. So, and I guess that's maybe what art and exhibition can create, and maybe that's their goal. I don't know.
I'm dreaming for you now that one day some of the pieces from Iota Project will find their space in other exhibitions or perhaps even at the ICA. Who knows?
Wow, that can be amazing. Maybe I'll write them.
I think you should.
For the next textile exhibition.
Yeah. So I understand what you were describing in terms of the language. And actually, this reminded me only about 3 years ago, just pre-pandemic, but it feels like forever ago. I was lucky to go to Jaipur and be introduced to Jaipur rugs. And it's a wonderful, oh, you know them.
Of course.
And I was lucky to meet their CEO and to discover some of the projects that they do, some of which is similar to yours, where they actually work with artisans remotely. And they've developed technology for them to actually order yarn from an app so that it comes straight to them when they need anything. And it allows for women to stay in the community. And also they've got a project that lets the most creative of them who want to do whatever they want. And I actually bought 2 of their rugs because I completely fell in love. I'm their unofficial PR, basically. So it's really quite special to know that you have the ability to channel and push this work out, but to these women in remote communities. But talk to me about your choice of going to the kind of product that you do, because you're working in interiors with crochet, which is not the most obvious thing that someone would consider.
That's correct. I wanted to go to the interior because I thought that first, to be able to create new ideas about what crochet is, I didn't want to work in fashion. I thought that it needs to go to a different direction. That's one thing. And I also thought that because the textile that we are using is more like ropes, it's much harder. I thought that it can also be part of what I was trying to take crochet for what we think about it, like as nostalgic and kind of grandma style, although it's very fashionable right now. It's always coming back, but still what we're trying to do is taking what we imagine would think about crocheting, and I wanted to try to make it a new thing. I mean, many people that looks on our product don't even think that they were made like by crocheting. And sometimes I'm happy about it, not because they don't recognize it, because they don't do that thing that's like that connected to what they imagine that crochet is like.
Sure, it breaks the association in their mind.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I also thought that in terms of competitors in fashion, it's going to be much harder because there are designers who works in crochet. And to be honest, now we are kind of getting back to fashion, not as part of Iota's collection. We collaborate with fashion companies because we know how to give them like a full service from designing the yarn to design the products to production. So, it's much less headache, much less. And in addition to it, the social impact that we create also is something that a lot of brands are interested in. So that the two things can serve a need in the fashion industry. But I wanted to create something new, and that's why I chose the interior. And in addition, I think that I'm as an industrial designer. I wanted to design objects for interior.
I have to say, it was very difficult for me not to spend an extra hour or 2 on your website, because I found that I wanted to click through to all of the product. But perhaps for those who haven't yet discovered what they are, can you try to describe them and also talk about how you thought to use handles on cushions that you can use outside, and also straps, on blankets. I mean, there are some really clever twists and turns in the collections that make them particularly appealing.
Thanks. Yes, of course. Okay, so I mean, what we sell mainly is rugs, poof, pillows. We have a collection of swings that works really, really good. And it's funny because sometimes when I present Iota worldwide, most of the time I started the presentation with a photo of our swing, and it's written like black on white with really big letters. No one needs a swing.
Actually, there's a friend of mine, I think she would, but apart from her, yes.
Okay, but most of people don't need a swing. And I'm asking, but what do we need? I think that we need to laugh. We need to have memories. We need to have fun. We need to create experiences. And I think that that's what our products are trying to do. I mean, we sell, of course, product that you can use, but I'm hoping that we also sell experience, because I don't know when was the last time that you swing on a swing. I don't know. I mean, most of the adults that I meet or that I'm talking with, it was really long time. So it's fun. And I have many stories about people that I saw started to swing and started to laugh. And it's like the best icebreaker that you can imagine and the best Instagram moment that I saw.
Especially since it's very pretty. So I could see like grown-ups on a crochet swing being, yes, of course, it's an unusual experience.
Exactly. And for our other product, we have an indoor-outdoor collection because the inspiration behind it is it's kind of nomads. And we were imagining that we are nomads in Greece. It was inspired by nomads because it's not like nomads all over the world. But I thought that today we live in like in between spaces. And it also actually, the launch was during the COVID. So it was part of it. And being nomads during the COVID, it's also a completely different story. But we imagine that today the spaces, for example, in the houses are not that strict. I mean, I can invite people and we will sit in the living room and then we'll go out, sit in the balcony or in our terrace or in our garden. And then it will be afternoon and we'll get inside, or it can be guests, but it can also be our family or the way that we move from space to space. And also we felt that today the outdoor is not that the indoor now is like, this is the living room and the outdoor looks like, out that you have like plastic furniture there and you don't mind. I mean, it becomes like one space that describe who you are. And I think that during the COVID, we understood also that people invest more in their houses because it's where they spend most of the time. And when we launched the collection, we imagined the idea behind the nomads was that you can, like, what do you need when you go somewhere? So maybe you need like a really good spot. I don't know, in front of the sea, having a great view. I don't know, under the sun, just catching some sun. It can be a really good spot. And you need like a place to lay down or that you can put your back or head and then feel relaxed. Maybe a book, or I will say our phone, because that's how it works. So for each product, we had a handle. It would be easy to carry. And we could imagine that you carry it, I don't know, from inside, outside, at your house, but we imagine that you take it also to your favorite spot in the neighborhood or to your favorite spot, wherever it is. And it would be easy to carry because we thought that now we carry like our bags and our personal stuff, but we could imagine that you can carry your furniture and create your home everywhere that you will be in the world. And it is also, I guess, part of what the COVID I don't know, affected us, I would say. And after that, we traveled to Greece. It's an island, and where do people live like the longest years, I would say. An average death year is like 100 or 98. And we were researched why is it different than everywhere else? And it was written they have like they are self-sufficient. They get related to food, related to craft, related to the way that they build their houses. So kind of use your hands and not just do what you need to or use your head. I mean, they really practicing doing what they need, like create again, like some of the clothes or cook many things by themselves. There are not many restaurants that the people who live there, I mean, not used to go out to eat outside. They eat together, but everyone cooks something. They actually drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, but sleeping, they are resting at noontime. And we read also that they do a lot of sex. So that's what we read, that they are, why do people live there? I mean, for such a long time. And it was a really nice trip over there because we could imagine the way the collection is built is it's taking the grandma square. It's like most familiar way of crocheting. It's like grandma square that, if I'll get back to where it started, it used to be knitted. It used to be crocheted from leftovers because it was easy to carry. And you just did like one more square from leftover yarn, another square from another leftover yarn. And then you just connected all the squares and it created like a blanket or whatever, like a jacket or whatever you want. So that's what we could imagine that it's something that you can carry with you all the time. And actually, when we designed the collection, we took that grandma square, but we made it very big with a different material, and it becomes like a texture. But the women that we work with, actually, they knit squares like separately, and then they combine them to a rug or to a pillow. And when you look at from like a top view, it looks like you won't think about it as a grandma square because of the material, because of the scale, because of the way that it looks like it's big as a rug and not as a blanket. So you don't even recognize it. And we like that idea of doing it.
I had to go back to your website to look at it. Yes, I see that. It completely makes sense. It does call back to that doily grandma.
Yeah.
But it's completely modern and super appealing. And there's something interesting I find about the way that you designed the double cushion that you can lift with a handle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that what you were saying earlier about somehow what makes you feel at home is also that you can really rest, and having the right support is really what makes you feel like you can sort of let go of your worries and sort of relax and rest. So I see this as I'm looking at on the screen. I feel the connection to what you're doing with the design. And I'm going to tell you something silly. In my spare time, I'm a meditation teacher. And just this weekend, I was recording a new grounding meditation. And it's a very short meditation, but in which you explore what the sensation is of being supported when you're sat in a comfortable position, whether or not you have a back or a cushion behind you, or the feeling of the seat or the ground underneath you. And having that sense of feeling supported is what just makes us feel at home. So anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know, when you are talking about meditation, knitting and crochet is considered like a yoga to the brain. It's considered as a meditative craft. And I think that this is also why a lot of women that we work with really enjoy it, because at some point you don't need to count. You just do it like in a kind of automatically. You can talk during while you're crocheting, or you can, I don't know, watch TV, or you can hear music. It's not something that you need to be focused, but first it helps you completely develop your mind. Kind of, it could really consider like one of the best, I would say. I can't say medicines, of course, but maybe it's like pre-help, dementia and the Alzheimer. It's really considered like the best cure. That if you practice it, it really helps your brain work like extra hours. And I really think that craft is amazing.
That sounds fascinating. And now you're tempting me. I noticed on the website as well that I assume that you launched this during the pandemic, that you created some crochet starter kits.
Yeah, actually, when the pandemic started, we could go to the studio because we were 6. And I mean, it's a small studio and it was like 2 kilometers from our house. So we enjoyed going there because we met people. But Europe close to us. So in terms of selling products, I mean, for a few for like a month. And so it stopped. Everything stopped. The world stopped. And then we were 6 designers that sat on the same room and were anxious to do something. And we didn't know what to do. And then we thought about the DIY kits. We decided that because we love crocheting and that craft, and we think it's amazing. And as I told you, it's because we knew it's meditating, and we knew it's considered like a yoga to the mind. We wanted to take people out of the Zoom, to take people out of the screen, and to teach them or to give them the ability to work with their hands. And actually a lot of people were so interested because they were looking for something to do and that it will be creative. And what we were trying to do is to create DIY kits that will be attractive as the product. We didn't want to design like those socks for babies that I mentioned in the beginning. We wanted to create things through crocheting that will be cool and attractive and relevant and modern, and that people would really want. And we designed, I think, around 50 kits, 50 DIY kits. And for the first year of the COVID, it works amazingly. I mean, people liked it. We sold it all over the world. And it was really, really good way to support what we are doing, but also to feel that we can do something. So it was a great experience for us.
So would you talk to me about the mission?
Yes, I would love to. I think it's like we were talking about design so much, and I like it because I always think that our products has a social mission, but because that they cost a lot, they have to be very well designed. I mean, no one buy our product as a donation. It's not like even not €100.
Oh God, yeah.
You don't pay €1,000 as a donation by buying a product. So the design is a very big part of what we are doing. But the reason that we are doing, I mean, like the why question that we ask all the time, as we would love, I mean, our goal is to create a social impact through design. Today, we work mainly with a community of Syrian refugees in Istanbul. We work with around 50 women each month, between, I would say, 50 to 70 women each month for the last 4 years, that works, some from their houses and some of the workshops that we work with in Istanbul. We work with a few more small communities, one also in Turkey that does needle crochet. It's like crocheting, but with very, very thin needle. And also with one that we started to work, and the new collection going to be launched in March in India, that it's also actually will be weaving and not knitting. It's a completely new adventure for us, and I can talk about it afterwards. And there is a small community in Mexico, but I mean, our dream is to provide jobs to as much as women that we can. And also it won't be something that we will do and not do like each month. It will be something that will be temporary and they can count on us. We know that, I mean, they will know that that's the work. Of course, that they receive fair trade and first civil rights, because that's what we are here for. And I think that is very important part of what we are doing. And we are in a very good relationship with the women that we work with, because I think that the connection is made because it's important for us, and actually they felt connected to us and to the product. So it's a community. What's also special for me about it, that it's not like a micromanagement. I don't know when do they work. I don't know where do they work from. I mean, they know that that's what we need because that's what we order, and we are taking responsibility on our orders. I mean, it's not related to them. We have a stock and we buy the stock, and if we sell it, and if we don't sell it, that's not good, but it's our responsibility. So our relationship have to be based, and it starts with a lot of trust, because I'm asking them that it will be ready in a week. And I don't know where do they work. I mean, imagine now that a lot of people like go to work and come back to work, and we have that we see each other working and we know that we are working. But with the women that we work with, I don't know, I trust them. I trust them to do what they need to do for us. And they know that if it will be good, they will receive more work. And if it won't be good, if it won't deliver on time, on the right quality, we're going to have a problem and we won't be able to pay them because I can trust them. So it's based on trust. And I think that it's really nice way to work with people. And I also know that's the only way that they can actually work with us, because the women that we work with, most of them are mothers. They are refugees, and some of them are from unprivileged areas or backgrounds. So they have to take care of the kids. They have to take care of them. So I understand, and also as a mother, but I also understand that you have to find a way to do it together. If I am letting them to choose when do they work, they can arrange their time and do it. So it's not, I think that we have to understand that that's the only way to work with.
That's very inspiring. And I'm glad that you made that introduction and talking about it's not micromanagement. Yeah, that's right. It's a different way to think about work altogether. So as I read several of the articles about you, about Shula and the Iota Project, I noticed a couple of different terminologies that I felt were particularly intriguing. Can you talk to me about slow design and its benefits?
Slow design is a way that you understand. For me, at the beginning, I would say that things takes time. I mean, I think that we understand it so very well when we talk about food. I mean, we understand that fast food maybe comes fast, and maybe if you're hungry, it helps. but we understand what the meaning behind eating something that is so fast and needs to be created fast. And when we say fast, we are talking also about most of the time cheap. And when I think that it's kind of the same with design. Design that is it's kind of fast design means most of the time that it sells in a mass production. And if it's like cheap, so someone paid the price. There is no way, I mean, that you can create something that would be high-end, fair trade, took care of all the small details, and no one would pay the price. For me, slow design, it's something that we actually practicing, because crocheting takes time no matter what. I mean, if you will order from me now a rug that it's not in our stock, and it's something that we do all the time. We do custom-made rugs all the time with the right measurements and colors and finishes. I give to my clients 90 working days. It's 3 months, because we need to create the yarns, and we need to give the yarn to the knitter, to the artisans, and they need to crochet. So it takes time no matter what. And also it's not a machine. So it's not that you press play and she can knit for 48 hours and without rest. I mean, because it's hard and you do it with your hands, so you have to rest and you have to go to sleep and you have to eat and you have to go to it. When I'm thinking about slow design, my goal is that people, like everyone says, that let's buy products that will stay for long. We would love them for a long time. They can work with changes in our life, for example, and they will be in very good quality. And if on the way that you can be part of something that you believe in, you can create an impact. I always say that Iota is the platform. We are not the one who does the change. We are a platform. The people that will make the change will be the clients, will be the companies, will be the interior designers, will be the architecture that will decide to work with us, to choose our product on other products. Because we kind of giving the opportunity, but people that will choose to use it, they will make the change. They will affect their clients. They will affect the people that live in their spaces, because they will prefer to choose and to use something that has an impact on something that doesn't. And it doesn't have to be Iota. It can be any other brand that has sustainable social impact.
Yeah, it's so sustainable social impact. And at the same time, as you mentioned before, it's not just a price point, it's luxury. And actually, we had a conversation with a wonderful designer based in London called Pippa Small, who is an ethical or conscious jeweler, I would say. And she talked so beautifully about the luxury of made by hand. It's not the same thing as luxury created by a machine. And I've been to beautiful factories in Italy that do use machines, and the way that the workers interact with them still mean that it's luxury and it's hand finished and it's impeccable. But there's a different connection, I think, to the relationship with made by hand. And I think that the customer feels almost at an intuitive, unconscious level, the difference between one and the other. I guess that's part of the beauty that comes with made by hand, is also slight changes, imperfections that make them, I was going to say, remarkable, but perhaps it creates a connection with our heart, you know?
Yeah, that's completely true. When I think about it, I think that as a designer, we have kind of a different challenge in Iota, because the women that we are working with are not artisans. So our product has to have tolerance for mistakes. I mean, we need to design something in a way that we understand that it's going to have mistakes. And when you think about, I mean, as a designer, I'm used to give a sketch to the carpenter. And if he's a good carpenter, he will give me exactly as what it was in the sketch. But now, when we design, like we have a pool, for example, that's made out of 200 flowers. You can make 10 mistakes in each flower and no one would notice. It's the same in the swing, for example. It's made out of 189 flowers. And if you would make mistakes, no one would know, because it becomes a texture. It becomes something that is alive. So I think that in that way, we are really practicing what does it mean to work with a handmade artisan. And also, it's a way of thinking. I mean, our team has to think about when we design product that way. And I'm telling people all the time that it will be the right measurements, but if it will be 2 centimeters more, 2 centimeters less, I can't control it. And if it's too important, don't buy from us, because it's not something that I can promise. The other thing is, there is no machine in the world that does crochet. So even if we want to, it's not possible. So it has to be by hand. And more than that, as you said, I think that psychologically, the way that we think about how we connect or how we experience the product, I can always compare it to food. Imagine that you eat something that was done by machine, that you receive like a plate that was completely, that someone opened a package, a machine, put your food on the plate, and imagine that you eat something that someone made it. You feel much more comfort when you eat something that someone did. I mean, you feel that someone took care of you. Someone looked at what is it going to be, and not just like went out of a box.
You know, you just made me realize that I think it was in Design or in one of the design magazines, I saw some renderings of the first completely automated drive-through store in the US. And I can't remember what fast food brand it was. But so what you're describing feels A, horrible and not like something that I would ever want to eat. But B, it seems to be happening somewhere in the world. Thanks for scaring me a little bit.
But you know, if you want to eat it, you know that it's not good for you. You think that, okay, maybe I wanted to eat it once, but you know it's something that you can't rely on. You can't trust it. You know that it's something that it feels like that maybe you want to try, but it's not something that is sustainable. You can't eat it all the time because you know that it's not good for you. So I think it's the same.
So with this sort of very different image of the future to what you're working on with your project. So you may have expressed it before, but how do you imagine Iota Project to develop in the near to far future? What's the goal?
Okay, I have few goals, but one, I mean, the big one is that I can imagine that we have communities of women all around the world, and the production serves the area that the products are being sold in. For example, when we work in Europe, so the production maybe is in Istanbul with our community, but when we work in the US, so maybe we're going to build community of women in South or West America, and it can be in Mexico, Guatemala. I mean, there are many countries, but I can imagine that we build communities over there, and the work and the order would provide, job to the market that they live in and sell in and produce in. It would be the same area. I think in sustainable way, it will also kind of take off all the flights and the transportation that it's something we know it's a big issue now when we talk about sustainability. So I think that in my mind, if the communities that we work with will serve the market that they are being sold in, it will be a kind of holistic way. And I think that it's a nice image that I have in mind, because I think that if the market that we live in will serve the market that we buy from, and it's something that I think can be interesting. If we were talking also about slow design, it's part of it. That's one goal. My other goal is Iota. It's, as the way that I see it, it's kind of a method it's a way of thinking, I think. And now we are doing it with a new craft. As I told you, our new collection is made by weaving. It's a new community that we work with in India. And I didn't know how it will look like and what people will think about it, because everyone knows us as the knitters. But I think that if I want to show to myself and to the world that it's a way of thinking, creating a community, teach and learn the craft, use new textile and create jobs for unemployed women, maybe it can be in other crafts and not just in one craft. And then maybe Iota can not just choose like one craft and dig into it. Although it's not that we are going to stop do what we do in crochet and we're going to keep developing that craft. But I think if we think about learning a craft, creating something cool out of it, providing it, but make it attractive and design our own ideas through that craft. So maybe it can be done in other crafts and other places in the world. So I would love to try, and that's what we will see now with the new collection, though I really think it's beautiful. But I will try to prove it. That's another goal that I have. Maybe the third one would be like to collaborate with very good and high-end brands. I think that the fact that we control the production chain, we know to design the yarn, we know to take care of the fibers, we know to design the products, we know to actually to produce it and to take care of the production. I think that what we can do is like, I would say it's the best service ever, because I know who stands behind it. But I really think that our abilities to create custom-made and small private collection to very good high-end brands can be a really good idea to work in. And I believe in that because I think that a lot of kind of those high-end and good companies can help us to create a bigger social impact. As much as we will produce more, we will provide job to more people. That's for sure. It's like a one line. It's a one row. There is no ifs. So working with big companies will give us the ability to show how we control that craft and that we know to produce in high quantities, but at the same time to produce and provide jobs to much, much more women. And I think it will show how good design can create a social impact and how well is it connected. So that's, I think, the third one.
I wish that for your future. I was actually going to touch on collaborations because I was looking in my notes, but I can't find it. You did collaborate already with Futuristic Car, which I think was particularly exciting.
Yeah, we were collaborating with Peugeot. We met them in Maison Objet. It's a design fair that is taking place in Paris twice a year. And we met the material designer over there. I don't speak French and she doesn't speak English. And it was funny because we really communicated with our hands. And afterwards with Google Translate, everyone told me like, what are you doing? are you actually in touch with the Peugeot designer through Google Translate? And everyone like told me, you are crazy. And I said, why? I mean, it's so easy. She doesn't need to find anyone who will translate.